Is Israel starving the people in Gaza? Well, there was footage released recently by the IDF coordinator of government activities in the territories showing 950 trucks filled with approximately 2,500 tons of food standing unused on the Gaza side of the Kerem Shalom crossing. Now, the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, which is endorsed by Israel and the United States, has publicly approached the UN and other international aid organizations offering to transfer all humanitarian aid that they have at no cost. Check out this exchange over here on Sky News with Eylon Levy, who's being interviewed over here, talking about the starvation and the distribution tactics. So we'll watch this clip together and then talk about it. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
Eylon Levy is a former advisor to the Israeli government and joins me now. Thank you for being with us. Let's just start with the UN Secretary General warning this evening that hunger is knocking on every door in Gaza. It's a horror show, he says. I just wonder, after 2.5 years, what is Israel trying to achieve in Gaza now?
The humanitarian situation in Gaza is plainly ghastly. And that's why Israel is urging the United Nations to distribute the aid that is already inside the Gaza Strip. Right now, as we speak, are the contents of 950 trucks of aid sitting on the Gazan side of the Kerem Shalom crossing. It's July. They're rotting in the sun. They need to be distributed to the people who need them, making sure that Hamas cannot get them. And that's why Israel is trying to get humanitarian aid to people by 2 avenues. The first, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the only operation in the Gaza Strip that is delivering aid at scale. And the second, urging the United Nations to do its job and to get that aid to the people who need it, instead of letting those 950 trucks rot in the sun.
Right. Because the accusation you see from the EU, for instance, and others, is that Israel is using hunger as a weapon of war.
Mark, there are 950 trucks worth of aid sitting inside Gaza that the UN hasn't distributed. Those are trucks that Israel has inspected, facilitated into Gaza, and the UN isn't distributing. While the system that Israel is working with, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, has already distributed 80 million meals worth of food.
The UN said to us today that there were still restrictions on getting aid in. It is an Israeli-backed organization that you've just mentioned now distributing aid, and they say that that distribution system is chaotic, it is dangerous, and it is deadly, and it is the survival of the bravest, the survival of the strongest, and they say it cannot go on.
The GHS system has experienced large amounts of chaos, in no small part thanks to Hamas trying to agitate crowds, telling people to go there out of hours, often provoking stampedes.
But hang on, 1,000 people killed. Mr. Levy, hang on. 1,000 people killed in a matter of weeks near those aid distribution points. That doesn't sound like chaos. That sounds like something a lot worse than that.
Those are Hamas figures, which are unverified, and from my conversations with officials...
What are your figures then?
I think in all honesty, we have to say that not only do I not know, but nobody knows. Those numbers are almost certainly...
This is literally Israeli-controlled territory. So if you're questioning Hamas figures, you must have your figures. This is your territory. This is where the distribution, it's a combat zone. That's where you've chosen to set it up.
These numbers are coming from the Hamas-run health ministry, which, like the rest of Hamas, has an interest in trying to frustrate a humanitarian system that is bypassing Hamas's control of aid. We know that Hamas, under the previous mechanism, which was deeply flawed, was able to hijack aid, divert it, and tax it as well. That was able to finance Hamas's war machine and prolong this war.
Just stick with this. The Israeli military say that they have come under threat on a number of occasions, and hence that is why they've opened fire. But what threat are people desperately trying to get food to heavily armed troops? And is the only method of crowd control that your troops have shooting people dead?
I agree that there needs to be a great deal of improvement in managing the crowd control issues. It doesn't change the fact that Hamas is trying to deliberately sabotage the GHF because it is undermining its control of humanitarian aid. We know that Hamas has been trying to provoke stampedes, that it's sent armed actors into the crowds, and that it's been trying to frustrate that system because it wants to go back to the system it was able to divert and tax and to continue financing its war machine. And what Israel is trying to do with the GHF system, which if you want someone to justify it, you can speak to the GHS spokesperson. But what Israel is trying to do is to strike a balance between the humanitarian needs of the population and the security needs of undermining Hamas's rule in this territory. Because if this war ends with Hamas remaining in power, able to tax humanitarian aid in order to finance its fighters, well, we know that this war is going to continue. And Israel doesn't want this war to continue. It wants a ceasefire.
Right. Let me just... One of your own soldiers has told an Israeli newspaper recently, those who come for food are treated like a hostile force. No crowd control measures, no tear gas, just live fire with everything imaginable. Now, that is one of your soldiers saying that. I mean, this distribution system seems more, as a UN official said the other day, more like a killing ground.
You have the same United Nations that is not distributing 950 trucks worth of food and find it much easier to blame Israel for trying to create a humanitarian system that will bypass Hamas than take responsibility for the way the existing system has been infiltrated by Hamas to continue financing its own war. Clearly, there is need for improvement in the crowd control measures around the GHF facilities. It doesn't change the fact that Hamas, together with other interested actors and the United Nations, are trying to frustrate the only system in Gaza at the moment that is distributing aid at scale. Because in the time that the GHF, Mark, in the time that the GHF has distributed 80 million meals worth of food, the UN is letting those 900 trucks rot in the sun. And I think anyone calling on Israel to facilitate more aid into Gaza should distribute the aid that's already in there rather than letting it rot in the sun.
Right, well, I just repeat, the UN said to us today that there are still restrictions on that aid getting in, and the Israeli backed distribution system is the only one that the Israelis want to operate. Let me just repeat finally a question. My first question. What are you trying to achieve in this war? The IDF top brass said a few months ago that Hamas was more or less militarily defeated. Experience shows the best way to get hostages out is via a ceasefire and a negotiation. What are you trying to achieve now? I simply don't understand.
Israel wants to achieve a temporary ceasefire with Hamas that will create space for talks for Hamas to return all the hostages, relinquish power, and end this war. This war has been going on for far too long, and as you noted, Hamas's grip on power is collapsing. It's not able to pay its fighters, it can't pay its civil servants, it's increasingly dependent on child soldiers. Its grip on power is collapsing. And the question now is whether the world is going to throw Hamas a lifeline to allow it to rebuild its terrorist regime in Gaza, or whether we get a temporary ceasefire in which the world gives Hamas a reality check and says, it's game over, you are never governing Gaza again, not a penny goes into reconstruction because you will end up putting it into your tunnels. Okay. You need to relinquish power and let the people of Gaza move on towards a future of security next to Israel and end this forever jihad against Israel. That's what Israel wants now. That is why Israel has said yes to the proposal for a ceasefire that is on the table. Hamas is saying no, and if you want this war to end, we need pressure on the party that is rejecting a ceasefire now to come to the table, accept the ceasefire, and let us put this war behind us and move on.
Okay, Eylon Levy, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
If one of America's neighbors came into the United States and, proportionally speaking, on one day killed tens of thousands of our citizens and took thousands of hostages and had them in underground tunnels, do you think America would be concerned or wait before going in and retrieving our hostages and making sure that the group that started this destruction, that they would not live to see the light of day, that they would be removed from power and never being able to do that again? Well, that's exactly what Israel is doing. And especially since Hamas has promised that as soon as they get the opportunity again, that they are going to do more October 7th. This is not like a one-time deal. This is something that is going to be, done whenever the opportunity arises. So Israel has an obligation to get back its hostages. There's still hostages there. and to eradicate Hamas, make sure that they can't do this sort of destruction again. I don't know where the sentiment comes from that that is not a justified reaction to a war that was started against them. But unfortunately, spreading lies like the starvation lie hinder Israel from what it needs to do, putting up constant roadblocks of international condemnation instead of allowing it to do what needs to be done. If you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.